Hello everyone, this is Rick, and today we are going to discuss about Lord Buddha, his life and his teachings. So this is a start to our series on Buddhism and different aspects of Buddhism related to it. So at first we will discuss about the life of Lord Buddha, and along with that the philosophies or his teachings that he propagated in the society at that point of time. So without doing any delay, let's begin. Introduction to Buddha. Buddha is recognized in the Pali Canon as an exceptional individual who has achieved enlightenment and freedom from the cycle of birth and rebirth. So Buddha is an entity according to Pali canon who is very much exceptional and who has achieved liberation from the cycle of birth and rebirth. Siddhartha Gautama, who known as Buddha, was born in the Shakya clan in Lumbini and renounced worldly life at the age 29. So Siddhartha Gautama was a prince of the Shakya clan in Lumbini, which is currently situated in Nepal, renounced the worldly life at the age of 29. His journey of awakening began with the realization that life is marked by suffering and impermanence. So, according to Gautama Buddha, nothing is permanent in life, and as soon as he realized this, he began a journey marked by suffering in order to get liberation. He practiced extreme asceticism followed by meditation under the peepal tree, reaching enlightenment. So in his life he served extreme penances and followed extreme asceticism, followed by different kind of meditation techniques, and finally he achieved nirvana under a peepal tree. Thus he gained enlightenment. Buddha's key insight was the middle way between severe asceticism and indulgence in sensual pleasure. So he followed the middle way, which means that between severe penance and indulgence in sensual pleasures. So that was an introduction to Lord Buddha. Early life and renunciation. How was his early life and why did he leave the common world in order to get liberation? Born as a prince, Siddhartha witnessed foresight: an old man, a sick man, a corpse, and a wandering ascetic, which prompted his quest for truth. So, while he was roaming around the city as a prince, he saw an old man, a sick man, a dead body, which is a corpse, and a wandering ascetic, means a person who has left all kind of worldly pleasures, was wandering, and all these four sights prompted his quest for the truth. He abandoned his princely life and practiced asceticism until he realized it did not lead to true knowledge. So he left his family, he left his whole princely life, and went away from every kind of known pleasures to man, and thus he practiced asceticism until he realized that like this he cannot lead true knowledge. So how can he to go and get true knowledge? That was nourished by Sujata's offering of milk rice. He sat in meditation and achieved higher states of consciousness. So Sujata offered him milk rice, and by being nourished with milk rice, he sat in continuous meditation until he achieved higher state of consciousness, that is enlightenment. Mara, the personification of delusion, challenged his efforts but failed to distract him from his path. So Mara is considered to be the personification of distraction or delusion. So he was distracted sometimes At least Mara tried to distract him sometimes, but Mara failed, and thus Buddha faced the challenge of delusion from Mara, but he did not move away from his path. Siddhartha attained enlightenment and resolved to teach others about the path to liberation. Buddha's enlightenment. What was enlightenment and what happened that led to enlightenment? After his enlightenment, Buddha first taught at Deer Park near Benares, emphasizing the middle way, which means that I will not be indulged into extreme pleasures, neither will I serve extreme penance. So that was the middle way. So after his enlightenment, the first teaching, the first session of teaching that he conducted was at Deer Park near Benares, and there he emphasized on the middle way of life. His initial doctrine, turning the wheel of Dharma, led to realization of truth by his first 5 disciples. So at first he had only 5 disciples, and his initial doctrine, which means the turning wheel of Dhamma, the beginning of the spread of Dhamma, was the realization of truth by his 5 disciples. Buddha's teachings focused on 4 noble truths and the Eightfold Path to end suffering. So he focused on 4 noble truths and the Eightfold Path, which was required to achieve the truth and end all kinds of worldly sufferings. He established a monastic order, the Sangha, to preserve and spread his teachings. So to preserve and spread his teachings, he organized an order of monks which is called the Sangha. He continued teaching for over 4 decades, passing away at the age of 80 in Kushinara. So until he passed away, he continued teaching the middle way of life and the things that one should do in order to realize the ultimate truth. Buddha's teaching and comparison with other philosophies. So what were his teachings? Buddhism is not a religion in a traditional sense, but a philosophy and a path of practice. So according to the Buddhist principles, Buddhism is not a true religion, but it is a philosophy and a path through which one can practice and attain the goal of ultimate truth. Buddha's teachings offer a way of life that can lead to salvation from the cycle of birth and death. So Buddha's teachings are a kind of way of life which can give you salvation from the cycle of birth and rebirth. So it is considered that your soul remains in this world in the form of rebirth. Once you die, it again takes birth in some other body. Therefore, Buddha's teachings paved the way from the liberation of the cycle of birth and rebirth. There are differences and overlaps in teachings directed towards the monastic orders and lay people. So there are obviously many differences and overlaps in Buddha's teachings because he did not write everything. His disciples wrote and they reinterpreted his talks in order to fit their own intentions. So there was an overlap of thoughts in the monastic order. The core of Buddhist doctrine is the 4 noble truths: the reality of suffering, its cause, its cessation, and the path leading out of it. So the 4 truths are the reality of suffering, its cause, why you are suffering, its cessation means the suffering itself, and the path by which you can end the suffering. The Eightfold Path is crucial to achieving nirvana, consisting of right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. So these are the elements of Eightfold Path with important factors like mindfulness and concentration. So what are the core concept of Buddhism? Dukkha. This is the ultimate thing in Buddhism, which means suffering. Dukkha means suffering, and is cessation central to Buddhist teachings addressing universal human experiences of suffering and happiness. So, according to Buddhism, the world is filled with sadness and suffering. Therefore, you must go through the suffering in order to get the knowledge of ultimate truth. The concept of anicca, which means impermanence, nothing is in this life is permanent, and thus it influences how we perceive ourselves and our reality. So according to the concept of anicca, nothing is permanent in this world, and thus there is an effect on how we perceive ourselves. Anatta, which means the principle of non-self, challenges the existence of a permanent soul or self. So according to Buddhism, there was no permanent soul or self, and that is the concept of anatta. The teaching of Pattika Samupada explains the interdependent nature of reality and phenomena. So the reality and phenomena, two aspects of life, are interdependent on each other, which means one depends on the another, and both cannot exist independently. The principle of karma underlines the ethical dimension of action and their effects on future rebirths. So how you will lead this life will show you a way in future rebirths. So if you have led this life very badly, you will have very bad rebirth of your soul in future. So that is how the concept of core Buddhism affects one's lives. 12 nidanas and dependent origination. So there are 12 nidanas and that depends on the origination. The law of Pattika Samupada is detailed through the 12 nidanas, illustrating the cycle leading to suffering. So the cycle of suffering has been dictated through the detailed of the 12 nidanas. It begins with ignorance and progresses through various mental and physical states leading to birth, aging and death. So the experiences of suffering begins with ignorance and it progresses. It goes on through various mental and physical stages of life like birth, aging and death. Understanding and breaking this cycle is the key to achieving liberation from suffering. So once you understand this cycle and move away from it, you will get the liberation, which is the ultimate truth, and thus you will be liberated from the sufferings. The concept of nama, which means mind, and rupa, which means body, along with 5 aggregates, explain the transitory nature of existence. So we get the transitory nature of existence through concepts like mind and body. The ultimate goal is the attainment of nibbana and extension of desire, attachment and delusion. So what is the ultimate truth? It means we will be free from all kinds of desire and we will be not attached to any materialistic thing in our life, and we will not be affected by any kind of delusion. Nibbana and transmigration of character. Nibbana represents the extinguishing of greed, hatred, ignorance and illusory sense of self. So therefore, if in order to realize the ultimate truth, we must rise above self and be free from every kind of greed, hatred and ignorance. Thus we can attain nirvana. Parinirvana is the final passing away of an enlightened being, free from the cycle of birth and rebirth. So parinirvana is in a one sense death of a person, and once an enlightened being dies, it will not take rebirth again. Therefore, free from the cycle of birth and rebirth. Buddha rejected the idea of Atman, instead teaching the transmigration of character or personality traits. So Buddha did not believe in universal soul or the permanence of soul, that is Atman, which is an Upanishadic philosophy. Therefore, he rejected the idea of Atman and focused on transmigration of one's character or personality traits. The concept suggests a continuous flow of life forces, like the transmission of flame from one candle to another. So just like flame moves from one candle to another, if you pass on the flame, like that there is a continuous flow of life forces. The teaching of Anika Dukkha Anatta offers a profound understanding of the nature of existence. So that was all about Nibbana and transmigration of one's character. Karma and rebirth. What is karma according to Buddhism, and how does it affect your rebirth? The karma actions based on intention plays a critical role in the cycle of samsara, determining the nature of rebirth. So your actions based on your intentions will determine in what kind of situation you will again take birth. Ethical conduct as prescribed by Buddha directly influences one's future experiences and rebirths. So how you lead this life, what kind of morality and ethical conduct you follow in your life will determine one's future experiences and what kind of birth you will have in your next life. The ethical code for monastics includes avoiding harm, lying, stealing, sexual misconduct, and use of intoxicants. So these are the rules or ethical codes which a Buddhist monk is supposed to follow. That is, you must not harm anyone, you must not lie in your life, you should abstain from the malpractice of stealing, you should abstain from sexual misconduct, and you should never be victim of any kind of intoxicants. Lay followers are also advised to follow a similar ethical path, although celibacy is exclusive to monastic life. So any other followers who are not monks, they were also encouraged to follow all these ethical codes in life, but celibacy, which means you will not have a life partner, that was reserved only for the monastic people. The cumulative result of karma from the past actions dictate the circumstances of one's rebirth and life experiences. So that was the interrelationship between karma and rebirth. Now, what are the ethical codes and how was the monastic life in the Buddhism? Buddha established detailed precepts for monastics, emphasizing chastity, simplicity, and mindfulness. So he established very detailed rules for the monastic principles, and he emphasized on chastity, which means that you will be pure, you will be very much simple, and you will be very much cautious, mindfulness. So all these things should be incorporated in the life of a monk. Monks and nuns were to avoid killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and use of intoxicants. So monks and nuns in the monastic order were to avoid every form of killing. Killing even for food was prevented, was not to be done. One should not steal or lie. Any kind of sexual misconduct was not tolerated, and one should not fall victim to the use of intoxicants. The emphasis on intention highlights that morality of an action is determined by the volition behind it. So morality of an action is very much determined by the volition behind it. Buddha's emphasis on ahimsa extended to all living beings, advocating for a diet that avoids harm where possible. So one must not eat something which has been made by harming some other living being. Therefore, his idea of ahimsa was not restricted to not harming humans only, but it extended to all kinds of living beings. The right conduct is seen as a necessary but not sufficient condition for attaining nirvana, with spiritual insight being paramount. So it is not that by following all the moral ethical codes you can attain nirvana. You must have some insight into the spiritual being, into the spiritual codes of life. That is the ultimate truth of nirvana. Emphasis on ordinary experiences. Buddha emphasized on the ordinary experiences also. Buddha taught that ordinary experiences are a part of a continuous process of change and impermanence. So ordinary experiences are examples that nothing is permanent and it is a part of continuous process in one's life. He focused on direct knowledge and understanding as the path to enlightenment rather than relying on divine help. So, direct knowledge and understanding of one's society was the path to enlightenment. He did not rely on divine help. One can get enlightenment through the ordinary experiences only. While acknowledging the existence of gods, the Buddha emphasized that enlightenment is achieved through personal effort and wisdom. So, while acknowledging the existence of gods, he acknowledged the existence of the divine beings, but he emphasized that ultimate truth can only be achieved through personal effort and wisdom. Divine help was not required, it was not the condition for getting enlightened. Karma ties to the broader cosmic order where positive actions lead to beneficial outcomes and negative actions lead to suffering. So his theory of karma was that if you do something positive, you will get benefits out of it, and if you do something negative, you will get suffering out of it. Enlightenment is not exclusive to monks and nuns. Lay people can also achieve significant spiritual progress through the practice of Eightfold Path. So, according to Lord Buddha, enlightenment was not only for the reserved was not a reserved right for the monks and nuns, but if you follow a spiritual way of life, then through the Eightfold Path, any lay people can become enlightened. Buddha's teaching methods. How did he teach his philosophy to the world then? The Buddha utilized a variety of teaching methods, including analogies and parables, to convey complex concepts. So, analogies and parables were used by him in order to make the world understand of the complex spiritual concepts. He encouraged followers to question and test his teachings through personal experience rather than accepting them on faith. So he said that whatever I say should not be accepted. You must test and you must by yourself decide whether what I am teaching is correct or not. Therefore, he was many times subjected to different kinds of tests by his disciples only. Buddha was known for his skillful means, which means upai, adapting his teachings to suit the capacities and inclinations of his audience. So, Buddha was known for his skillful ways of making people understand his complex concepts. He rejected the notion of a fixed permanent self or soul, countering the prevailing Brahmanical belief in the Atman. So he did not believe in the permanence of soul, which was the Upanishadic view about the Atman. His teachings were open and accessible and aimed at liberating all beings from suffering and the cycle of rebirth. So his teachings were very much open. It was not reserved knowledge for some high class people, but it was open to every section of the society, and thus he aimed at liberating all beings, not only humans, all beings from the cycle of birth and rebirth. Rejecting the permanent self, he rejected the permanent concept of a soul. Buddha's teachings challenged the idea of an external soul or self, an idea prevalent in Hinduism. So according to then the Brahmanical text of that period, the soul was eternal and permanent, but Buddha challenged that theory. By rejecting the Atman, he focused on the transient dependent nature of existence composed the five aggregates. So he focused on the transient and dependent nature of existence rather than accepting Atman as a permanent form of energy. Buddha emphasized the investigation of one's own experience to realize the truth or anatta, which means non-self. He emphasized on inquiry and investigation in order to understand the truth. The non-self doctrine is pivotal to understanding the nature of suffering and the path to its cessation. Buddha's insights on anatta provide a foundation for ethical conduct and cultivation of compassion and wisdom. So that was all about how Buddha challenged the existence of a permanent soul, which was very much prevalent in the religion at that point of time. The middle way. Now what is the middle way? Middle way represents a balanced approach to spiritual practice, avoiding extremes of asceticism and sensual indulgence. So we will not lead a life by having the effect of extreme suffering, or we will also not lead a life by indulging ourselves in different kinds of extreme sensual pleasures. So extreme of anything is not good. We will follow a middle path. That was the middle way. It is characterized by moderation, insight, and cultivation of qualities that lead to awakening. So moderation, insight, and cultivation of qualities was very much essential in order to lead a life through the middle way. Middle way is embodied in Noble Eightfold Path, which outlines the steps towards ethical living and meditative development. So we will not indulge ourselves in extreme luxury, neither will we suffer extreme suffering. So, and that can be achieved through a simplistic way of life called a life through Eightfold Path. This path is not prescriptive but offers guidance for individuals to develop understanding and compassion at their own pace. So this is not that it is not that everyone was told to follow the middle way, but it offers guidance for individuals to develop an understanding about the ultimate truth. The middle way thus becomes a practical framework for leading a life that is harmonious and conducive to spiritual growth, which means a very simplistic way of life. The Sangha, the Buddhist community. What was the Buddhist community or the Buddhist monastic order? Sangha is the community of Buddha's followers consisting both monastic members and lay practitioners. So Sangha is not only about the monks, it consists the monks and their followers. So lay practitioners are also included in the Sangha. It was established to preserve, interpret, and spread the teachings of Buddha after his death. So in order to preserve whatever Lord Buddha taught, we have the Sangha that was to interpret and spread his teachings also. The Sangha provides a supportive environment for individuals to practice the Dharma and pursue enlightenment. So, this provides an environment where you can attain enlightenment. Monastic life is structured to facilitate meditation, study, and living according to the Vinaya, the code of monastic discipline. So, Vinaya is the code of monastic discipline, and the monastic life is constructed in such a way that it can facilitate meditation and study, which will lead to enlightenment. Lay members of the Sangha are encouraged to support the monastics and to practice the Dharma in their everyday life. So, lay members of the Sangha are very much encouraged and guided by the monks to practice their Dharma. Now, how did Buddhism spread from the northeastern part of India into the world at that point of time? Buddha's teachings have a profound impact on millions of people across various cultures over 2 millennia. So it has been like 2,500 years since the advocation of Buddhism, but throughout throughout 2 millennia, Buddha's teachings have had an effect on different kinds of people from all sections of the society. Buddhism spread from India throughout Asia, adapting various forms and adapting to different cultural contexts. The core teachings about suffering, its causes, cessation, and the path to liberation continue to resonate with the individuals seeking meaning and spiritual growth. So, the core teachings are ever evolving. The legacy of Buddhism encompasses not just religious and philosophical insights but also significant contributions to art, literature, and social ethics. So, this was not just only about spirituality, but Buddhism, the philosophies of Buddhism, has its impact on art, literature, and social ethics in the time. Modern interpretations and applications of Buddhism engage with contemporary issues, ensuring the relevance of Buddha's insights in 21st century and beyond. So there has been different modern interpretations of Buddhist philosophy, and it has been applied in the contemporary world. Also, it has been used to deal with contemporary issues, thus ensuring the relevance of Buddha's insights even in the 21st century. Now, in the concluding overview, we will go through a summary of the entire presentation. Siddhartha Gautama's journey from a prince to enlightened Buddha signifies the transformative potential of human consciousness through self-inquiry and meditation. The Four Noble Truths. At the heart of Buddha's teaching lies the exposition of Four Noble Truths, addressing the reality of suffering, its cause, its cessation, and the path leading to liberation from suffering. The middle way is actualized through the Eightfold Path, a comprehensive guide to ethical living, mental discipline, and wisdom as means to end suffering. Impermanence, anicca, non-self, anatta, and suffering, dukkha, form the core philosophical framework, challenging the permanent sense of self and emphasizing the flow of existence. Karma and rebirth. Karma is the central concept underlining the moral causation of actions and their effects on future existence, thus shaping the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The establishment of Sangha created a community focused on spiritual practice and the preservation of Buddha's teachings, encouraging a collective pursuit of enlightenment. The legacy of Buddha endures as a philosophy of liberation, ethical practice, and path to peace, transcending time and culture to influence the lives of countless individuals globally. So that was all about the life of Lord Buddha and his teachings. In our next video, we will focus on different other aspects of Buddhism in great detail. Hope you have liked it, and please support me so that I can bring brighter contents in future. Thank you so much.